Stop trying to be nice. Because the more nice you act, the less people actually trust you. And the worst part, you don't even see it happening. You think you're doing the right thing. You think you're being a good person. But what if that version of you isn't real? What if it's something you learned? Something you built, just to be accepted? Think about it. You say yes, when you want to say no. You agree, even when something feels off. You stay quiet, just to avoid making things awkward. And people call you easy to be around. But deep down, it doesn't feel easy. It feels exhausting. Like you're constantly adjusting yourself, filtering your words, watching your reactions, making sure nothing you say pushes people away. And slowly, you stop noticing when you're being real, and when you're just performing. You smile at things that bother you. You laugh at things you don't find funny. You let small things slide, again and again. Not because you're okay with them, but because it's easier than dealing with conflict. And over time, this nice version of you becomes automatic. You don't even question it anymore. It just happens. Someone asks for something, you agree. Someone crosses a line, you ignore it. Someone disappoints you, you justify it. Because being nice feels safer than being honest. But here's where it gets strange. People start liking you, but not respecting you. They feel comfortable around you, but not careful with you. And without realizing it, you teach people exactly how to treat you. Not by what you say, but by what you tolerate. And this is the part no one talks about. The more you try to be liked, the more invisible your real self becomes. Because you're not showing it. You're replacing it, piece by piece, moment by moment, until one day, you don't even know which version of you is real anymore. And that's when something starts to feel off. Not outside. Inside. A quiet tension. A subtle frustration. A feeling you can't fully explain. Like something about the way you live isn't completely honest. But you ignore it, because everything looks fine on the surface. People like you. You avoid drama. You keep things smooth. So why does it feel so heavy? Why does something that's supposed to make life easier start making you feel more disconnected? And more importantly, if being nice is such a good thing, then why does it slowly start to feel fake? You notice it in small moments first. Someone makes a joke at your expense, and you smile. Not because it's funny, but because reacting would feel uncomfortable. So you let it pass. Again, and again, and again, and each time, something inside you tightens just a little more. But you ignore it, because that's what nice people do, right? They don't create problems. They don't make things awkward. They keep everything smooth. Until smooth starts feeling like silent. And silent starts feeling like invisible. You walk into a room, people greet you, talk to you, laugh with you, but something feels off. Like they're interacting with a version of you, not you. And you can't explain why. Because technically, nothing is wrong. No one is attacking you. No one is rejecting you. In fact, people seem to like you. So why does it feel like you're not really there? Why does it feel like you're watching yourself, instead of being yourself? You start replaying conversations in your head. What I should have said, what I wanted to say, what I didn't say, and suddenly you realize, you're not being careful. You're being edited, constantly. You filter your tone. You adjust your opinions. You soften your boundaries. Not because you're unsure, but because you don't want to disrupt anything. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Until it becomes automatic. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because now, people aren't responding to who you are. They're responding to what you show. And what you show is designed to be accepted, not understood. And that's why something inside you feels off. Because deep down, you know, if you stopped being this version of yourself, things would change. Some people might pull away. Some situations might get uncomfortable. Some relationships might not feel the same. And that thought alone is enough to keep you exactly where you are. So you stay nice. You stay agreeable. You stay easy. Even when it costs you something. Even when it slowly disconnects you from yourself. And here's the part no one sees. You don't even realize when it started. There was no moment where you decided, I'm going to hide who I am. It just happened. Gradually. Quietly. Over time. And now it feels like part of your personality. Like this is just who you are. But what if it's not? What if this nice version of you is actually something you learned? Something your mind built, for a reason you don't fully remember anymore. Because this doesn't start randomly. There's always a pattern behind it. A reason your brain chose this behavior. And once you see that pattern, you'll start noticing something uncomfortable. Being nice was never just about kindness. It was about something else. Something deeper. Something your mind is still trying to protect you from. So what is that pattern, and why does it quietly start controlling the way you act, even now? At first, it looks simple. Nice people just want to be liked. They value harmony. They avoid conflict. They try to make things easier for everyone around them. And on the surface, that sounds like a good thing. Because it is. Kindness matters. Being considerate matters. But this isn't really about kindness. Because real kindness has a boundary. This version of nice doesn't. It bends. It adjusts. It sacrifices. Not occasionally, but constantly. And that's where it starts to change. Because now it's no longer about being kind to others. It's about making sure no one has a reason to dislike you. And that shift is subtle. You don't notice it at first. You just notice that saying no feels harder. Speaking honestly feels risky. Disagreeing feels uncomfortable. So you avoid it. And over time, you stop asking what you feel. And start asking what will keep everything smooth. But this isn't the real reason. Because wanting to be liked is normal. Everyone feels that. So why does it go this far for some people? Why does it turn into this constant need to adjust yourself? To filter yourself? To hide parts of who you are? That's where the deeper pattern shows up. Because this behavior didn't start here. It started earlier. In moments where being fully yourself didn't feel safe. Maybe it was subtle. You expressed something honestly and got shut down. You disagreed, and it created tension. You showed emotion, and it made things uncomfortable. So your brain learned something. Not logically, but emotionally. It learned, being accepted is safer than being real. And once that association forms, it doesn't just disappear. It becomes a pattern. A quiet rule running in the background. So every time you're about to say something real, your mind steps in. Don't risk it. Every time you feel like setting a boundary, keep it easy. Every time you feel something strong, tone it down. Not because you're weak, but because your brain is trying to protect you. From rejection. From conflict. From losing connection. And this is where it starts controlling you. Because now, your behavior isn't coming from choice. It's coming from conditioning. You're not being nice, you're being careful. Careful with your words. Careful with your reactions. Careful with how much of yourself you show. And the more careful you become, the more distant you feel from your real self. Because your real self isn't being expressed. It's being managed. And here's the uncomfortable part. The more you rely on this pattern, the more people start responding to it. They get used to the version of you that never pushes back. Never disagrees. Never makes things difficult. And that becomes your role. The easy one. The understanding one. The one who always adjusts. But what happens when you stop adjusting? What happens when you finally say what you actually think? When you finally act the way you actually feel? That's where the real conflict begins. Not outside. Inside. Because now, you're going against something your mind has been using to protect you for a long time. And that creates tension. A quiet resistance. Like something inside you is pulling you back. Telling you, this isn't safe. But what if that feeling isn't actually protecting you anymore? What if it's just repeating something old that no longer applies? And if that's true, then what you've been calling kindness this whole time might not be kindness at all. So what is it really? So now you're stuck in something subtle. On one side, there's the version of you that wants to be real. To say what you actually think. To react the way you actually feel. To stop adjusting all the time. And on the other side, there's that quiet voice in your head. Don't make it awkward. Don't ruin the moment. Just let it go. And most of the time, that voice wins. Not loudly. Not aggressively. Just enough to make you pause, hesitate, edit yourself. And in that small pause, you choose comfort over honesty. Again, and again, and again, until it becomes your default. You start monitoring yourself without even realizing it. How you sound. How you come across. How people might interpret what you say. You become hyper-aware, not of others, but of yourself. Every word feels like it needs approval. Every reaction feels like it needs control. And slowly, you stop being present. Because you're busy managing the version of you that other people will accept. And this is where the conflict peaks. Because deep down, you know something isn't right. You feel it in those moments after conversations. When you replay everything in your head. Not what they said, but what you didn't say. What you held back. What you adjusted. And it creates this quiet frustration. Not at them. At yourself. Because you know you weren't fully honest. You weren't fully there. You were performing. And the worst part, people don't see it. They see someone who's calm, easy, understanding, but they don't see the effort behind it. The constant filtering, the constant adjusting, the constant holding back, and over time, that creates distance. Not just from others, from yourself. Because the more you perform, the less you recognize what's real. What you actually feel. What you actually want. What you actually think. Everything becomes softened, edited, safe. And this is the part that changes everything. The part most people never realize. It's not that you're kind. It's that you're afraid to be disliked. Read that again. Because this flips everything. All those moments where you thought you were being a good person, you were actually being a careful one. Avoiding tension. Avoiding rejection. Avoiding the possibility that someone might see the real you, and not like it. So you replaced honesty with agreeableness. Expression with control. Authenticity with safety. And it worked. People stayed. Things stayed smooth. Nothing got messy. But at the same time, nothing got real either. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Because now every nice reaction starts to feel different. Every time you hold something back, you notice it. Every time you adjust yourself, you feel it. And suddenly, what used to feel normal starts to feel fake. So if this isn't kindness, if it's not who you actually are, then what happens when you stop doing it? What happens when you stop choosing safety and start choosing truth instead? At first, nothing dramatic happens. You don't suddenly become a different person. You don't start saying everything on your mind. You don't turn cold or aggressive. It's much quieter than that. You just start noticing that moment when you're about to say yes, but something in you hesitates. That moment when you're about to smile, but it doesn't feel real. That moment when you want to speak, but your mind tells you to stay quiet. And instead of automatically adjusting, you pause. Not to react, but to see, to recognize the pattern. Because once you see it, you don't have to fight it. You just stop following it blindly. And that changes something. Slowly, subtly. You start letting small truths slip through. Not everything. Just enough. Enough to feel real again. You say no when it actually matters. You disagree without over-explaining. You stop fixing every uncomfortable moment. And something unexpected happens. Some people get confused. Some pull back. Some don't respond the same way anymore. And that used to scare you. But now, it feels different. Because for the first time, you're not trying to control how everyone sees you. You're just showing up as you are. And yes, it creates friction sometimes. But it also creates something real. Because the people who stay aren't responding to a version you created. They're responding to you, unfiltered, unmanaged, unedited. And that feels different, lighter, cleaner, honest. Because real kindness doesn't come from fear. It doesn't come from trying to be liked. It comes from choice. From being able to say no, and still choosing to say yes when you mean it. From being able to disagree, and still choosing respect. From being able to walk away, and still choosing to stay when it feels right. That's the difference. One is controlled, the other is real. And once you feel that difference, you stop going back. Because now you see it. That nice version of you was never the full truth. It was something you built to stay safe. But safety isn't the same as connection. And being liked isn't the same as being understood. So the next time you feel that urge to adjust, to filter, to keep everything smooth, just notice it. Because that small moment of awareness is where everything starts to change. And once you start seeing this pattern, you'll notice it everywhere. In conversations, in relationships, in yourself, and you won't be able to ignore it anymore. If this felt a little too real, comment real below. And if you saw yourself somewhere in this, you're not the only one. You're just one of the few who noticed. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the psychology of our behavior.